I'm a big fan of starting with why. So before you dive in and write your first React component, let me make sure that you know why committing to learning React is a very good thing that you're doing. If you've already formed your opinion about React, you can skip this video. Let's start with React's official definition. It states that it is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It is important to understand the two different parts of this definition. React is a JavaScript library and not a framework. The words library and framework mean different things in different contexts, and this could be a point for or against React. What's important to remember here is that React is small and it's not a complete solution. You will need to use other libraries with React to form solutions. React does not assume anything about the other parts in any full solution. It focuses on just one thing, which is the second part of the definition, building user interfaces. A user interface is anything we put in front of users to have them interact with a machine. User interfaces are everywhere, from the simple buttons on a microwave to the dashboard of a space shuttle. If the device we're trying to interface can understand JavaScript, we can use React to describe a user interface for it. Since web browsers understand JavaScript, we can use React to describe web user interfaces. I like to use the word describe here because that is what we basically do with React. We just tell React what we want, and it will build the actual user interfaces on our behalf in the web browser. Without React or similar libraries, we would need to manually build user interfaces with native web APIs and JavaScript, and that is not as easy. When you hear the statement that React is declarative, this is exactly what it means. We describe user interfaces with React and tell it what we want, not how to do it. React will take care of the how and translate our declarative descriptions, which we write in the React language, to actual user interfaces in the browser. Of course, HTML itself is a declarative language, but with React, we get to be declarative for HTML interfaces that represent dynamic data, not just static content. Let's go back to React being a library and not a framework, and let me answer this question. How exactly is not being a framework a good thing? Frameworks serve a great purpose, especially for young teams and startups. When working with a framework, many smart design decisions are already made for you, which gives you a clear path to focus on writing good application-level logic. However, frameworks come with some disadvantages as well. For experienced developers working on large code bases, these disadvantages are sometimes a deal breaker. Let me name two of the important disadvantages about using a framework. Frameworks are not flexible, although some claim to be. Frameworks want you to code everything a certain way. If you try to deviate from that way, the framework usually ends up fighting you about it. Frameworks are also large and full of features, and that make them hard to customize for specialized cases. If you need to use only a small piece of a framework, you usually have to include the whole thing. This is changing today, but it is still not ideal. Some frameworks are going modular, which I think is great, but I am a big fan of the pure Unix philosophy to write programs that do one thing and do it well. And React follows this philosophy because it is a small library that focuses on just one thing, enabling developers to declaratively describe their user interfaces and model the state of these interfaces. Here's a summary of the reasons why I think React gained this massive popularity. Working with the DOM API is hard. React basically gives developers the ability to work with a virtual browser that is friendlier than the real browser. When React was first released, I remember there was a lot of buzz around the performance of its virtual DOM, which we will talk about shortly. The virtual DOM performance is certainly a nice plus, but I think what developers like more about this is the fact that they wouldn't need to deal with the DOM API. Some people don't like this second point, but you'll often hear that React is just JavaScript. What that means is that there is a very small React API to learn, and after that, your JavaScript skills are what make you a better React developer. This is a big advantage over libraries with bigger APIs. Learning React pays off big time for iOS and Android mobile applications as well. React Native allows you to use your same React skills to build native mobile applications. You can even share some logic between your web, iOS, and Android applications. The React team at Facebook tests all improvements and new features that get introduced to React right there on Facebook.com, which increases the trust in the library among the community. It is rare to see big and serious bugs in React releases because they only get released after thorough production testing at Facebook. Most importantly, remember the one thing that React does exceptionally well. React established a new language between developers and browsers that allowed developers to declaratively describe stateful user interfaces. This means instead of coming up with steps for the transactions on their interfaces, developers just describe the interfaces in terms of a final state, like a function. When transactions happen to that state, React takes care of updating the user interfaces based on that. If someone asks you to give one reason why React is worth learning, this last one is the one. If you need to convince someone about React, you can send them to this article, which summarizes what we covered in this video. However, to keep the course short, I'll stop babbling about the why and get you started on the what and the how next.